Good morning, this is Robin Bieber on Chart Talk on the 24th of April at 7:10 in the morning London time. The chart in front of us is May RBOB and it's going to be a very relevant contract to watch today. Let's just recap. By yesterday morning, the contracts had hit all their targets lower, specifically the day before. They had completed a price cycle lower, the support had held and a correction beckoned, and that's what we witnessed yesterday. It was a classic textbook correction higher in a downtrend. I cannot emphasize enough that one tickle of the 5-day moving averages and the 34s in RBOB's case does not constitute a change of direction. It may lead to that, and more of that in a minute. The critical point today is what happens at the 5-day moving averages on most contracts, and particularly what happens on RBOB. RBOB's 5-day moving average around 61.86 and 8 and 21-day moving average resistances around 65.1440 are key. I repeat, 61.86 key 5-day moving average support on RBOB, 8 and 21-day moving average key resistance 65.1440. And RBOB led the charge yesterday. It was very strong initially. It had taken out the short-term moving averages, the 5, 8 and 30s, and rallied straight to the 34s, this brown line here. This was also a completion of a price cycle, and the 34s are very, very strong resistance. The odds were on a failure, and it duly failed, having breached it slightly. The result was a close yesterday above the 5 and 8s. The 5 are the red, the 8 are the blue. And now the key is simple. Below the 5-day, and this market the downtrend reasserts itself. Not targets, but lower numbers are highly likely. Above the combination of the 8 and 21 days at 65.1440 would point to more of a correction higher and a return to the 13-day moving average, which comes in around 66.55, and then the 34s again. In other words, let RBOB provide the guidance. The 5-day support at 61.86 is critical, and we're not very far from there at the moment. The 8 and 21-day resistance at 65.1440 is key. Over there, and this correction is showing its teeth, and it has more legs yet. Yesterday's failure was not altogether a surprise. Most times in corrections like this, in volatile conditions, the 5-day moving averages hold good and the market dips back and then has another go within the next 48 hours. And that's what we'll probably see today. So watch RBOB like a hawk. And if we go over to WTI and have a quick squint here, it's exactly the same. Up to the 5, note this, bit of breach, then south. But not by much. It's now moved over the fast descending 5-day moving average. That comes in around 1580 today. And so long as that can hold, it's okay. A move and close below 1580 would be bad news. It would suggest we're going back to test the recent lows. Over the 5, and we'll have a sniff of the 8-day around 1945 on a slingshot actions. That's what normally happens. So watch the 5. It's a total pivot today. Brent, exactly the same. It went up to its 5-day, hardly breached it, chucked the towel in and headed south. But it's now right at its 5-day, around 21.65. It's got to hold that or we're going to see lower numbers, i.e. the downtrend will reassert itself. Note that the stochastic on both WTI and Brent is positive with a hint of bullish divergence. Over the 5, if we can stay over the 5, and we're just below it at the moment, the odds are a test of the much more challenging 8-day around 23.95. Heating oil failed yesterday, really. Not only did it fail at the 5-day moving average, it closed below and it is still below. It's in trouble. It doesn't look good. That would change on being over the 5-day around 75.61. It's got to get over there or it'll act like a dead weight on the rest and probably result in lower numbers. Gas oil is a bit like heating oil, up to the 5, perfect correction here to the 5 and fail. Whilst the 5s hold proud on heat and gas oil, i.e. as resistance, the upside is somewhat limited. If they can move over the 5s and join the crudes, the upside looks more assured, and we should get a slingshot correction higher to the 8-day. The fact that the crudes are struggling to hold their 5s is worrying, but use RBOB's 5-day at 61.86 as a key support. It's absolutely critical. The 5 days are very, very important today. Watch them as resistances on heat and gas oil and as critical support on the crudes and RBOB. And remember, downtrends are stronger than corrections, otherwise they wouldn't be called downtrends. And that is what we're seeing at the moment, a correction in a prevailing and strong downtrend. We need move and close over the 5 for it to be anything more than a little correction. And even then, the 8 days are significant resistance. Now, if we look at structure is mirroring flat price on WTI, deck red deck, up to the 5-day and fail. Now the key is what happens at 504. We're printing at 505. It's struggling, but moving back over the 5 would be positive and suggest a slingshot leg up to the 8-day. This hasn't occurred yet. It's not out of the trees yet. It's still struggling. And the deck red deck is the same on Brent. Minus 537 is the number. It's printing 545. The 5 days at 537. It's got to get over there to give it any chance of recovery. What we're witnessing is across the board, the deck red decks, therefore structure and flat price, are moving consistently. They're testing their 5s to see whether there's actually some upside correction due or whether we're going to resume the downtrend and revisit the recent lows. If you look at the 60-minute charts, and this is the right-hand chart here, Brent is looking a little ragged. If it continues like this, if it can't hold around these levels and get back over the 5-day, these stochastics on the hourly chart are suggesting early weakness into the London morning. And on RBOB, the 60-minute chart, is interesting. It's illiquid, which isn't helping matters. It's suggesting that the market is trying, or this contract is trying to push higher. It's fragile. Watch the 5-day moving averages like a hawk today. That's all for today. Good luck, good trading, and bon appetit.